Welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell.
You know what this is? This episode is my final episode.
Are you trying to make me cry right out of the gate?
No, don't shed a tear. But it is it's my final episode. It's bittersweet because I'm looking at, I'm leaving you guys and all the fun that we have. And this is a fun platform, this podcast.
It's a blast.
It is great conversations. We've learned so much, come a long way. And
Hundreds of episodes.
Oh, we're well over 200 episodes.
I would not have seen that coming.
I know.
When we started this.
When they wanted the podcast initially, I was like, I didn't dig my heels in, but I was like, is this thing really going to work?
And we had some formatting problems. I think in the beginning, both of us were a little too uptight. We were like, what are we supposed to say? How are we supposed to do this?
Right.
And we got there.
It was a learning curve, as they say.
Yeah.
But I am moving. And
you are moving, like a big move.
Yeah, I am moving across the country. My wife and I, it was a big decision, but we went ahead and pulled the trigger. And this is, like I say, my last podcast. It's bittersweet. But doing this job, I have seen so many nightmare experiences that our viewers have gone through. Their loads are hijacked. And, they won't unload the truck until they come up with more money. It's criminal out there.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about this today, right? Because it's personal to you.
Yeah.
You were going through, I was listening to you on the phone, calling people to check into pricing and to check into what their insurance is and that. And you're going through all this whole checklist of things that you advise people who reach out to us to do. And it was just like, let's do this. This is such good, valuable information because people move every single day. Yeah.
And there's so many, like I said earlier, nightmare stories, and you don't want to wind up in that type of situation. I mean, moving is stressful enough anyway. You add in a bad moving company and your world just blows up. So we're going to get some helpful tips here. If you ever move, and everybody, even if it's not in the near future, somewhere down the line, you're going to move. So we're talking to Justin Hart. He's the owner of Just in Time Moving and Storage in Mesa, right here in the Valley. How you doing today, Justin?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be a part of your final podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you for being here. You have probably heard some nightmare scenarios with people going through, a move. Give us an example, a little taste of what you've heard out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. I'm sure most people listening or watching this will have had a moving horror story of their own at some point in their life. But so what you were talking about, with the hostage situation, the hostage loads, that's a very common thing. We probably get 1 to 2 calls a month just to our company of someone who is experiencing this, where they've hired a company to move them. They've paid them some money up front. They've gotten a total price. They've loaded their goods into their truck, taken it eventually to the destination that it's supposed to go to, and then refuse to unload until they collect $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, even $10,000 more. Last year, we had a situation with a service member, actually, being Veterans Day yesterday. It's pretty important here, but they had it was a moving company who the service member did what's called a PPM move. So a personal procured move where they hired their own company, and the goods never even made it to their residence. It was actually through a broker who pretended to be a mover, so not an actual moving company. They took their goods halfway across the country. They were stuck in a warehouse and never delivered. So the service member had paid for the service, never received his goods. A couple of months had gone by trying to figure out where his goods were in the first place. Finally was able to get an answer where they were. Ended up, we came together as an industry. There were several companies through the American Trucking Association, the Moving and Storage Conference, that got the goods, delivered them to him at no charge, and made everything whole for him again. But the goods were in rough shape. They were, everything was broken. Just a nightmare situation. So happens time and time again.
And amazing that you were able to make things right for him, but so often there really is no resolution other than people end up paying a bunch of money because they feel like they really have no other choice. And then you think about all the things that you do load into a moving truck. These, it's not just plates and cups.
Oh, no, there's all kinds of memories.
It's the things that matter. I mean, what's all packed up in your house right now? Think about all those boxes. Yeah. It's everything.
Yes, my life is in a bunch of boxes right now. Let's stay with the local move and give us some tips. Let's say somebody is moving from Buckeye to Mesa, Arizona, to cross town. They really don't have experience with moving. Where do they start? What are the first couple of things they need to do when hiring a moving company?
Absolutely. Great question. And something that's the time to figure out what you're doing, because most of us don't move every day. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into. We don't know the process. So obviously you want to look for not the cheapest company you can find. I'm not saying this as someone who wants to charge you more than I should for your moving services, but you want to make sure you're hiring a quality company who has quality equipment, quality movers that are on staff, background check, drug tested, good human beings working for them. They have insurance, and those are things that are pretty verifiable. There's a couple ways you can do that. Start with Google reviews, right? That's one way that you can kind of look up companies and see what people are saying about them online. Different networking, within your network, people that have used other companies, personal referrals are great. But we also have a resource here in Arizona called the Arizona Moving Association. And there's about 80 members of that association. About half of them are moving companies. And that's a great way to find a reputable company, whether it's us or any of the members. You can go on that website. It's moversaz.org. You can check every mover that's a member there. They've all been vetted. They all pledge, to meet our ethical standards, and they have insurance in place and things like that. So that's probably the best resource. But I'd also, make sure that you are willing to spend money on a mover. There's no regulations for moving in Arizona, so there's a lot of really cheap rates. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You're going to hire companies who don't have insurance, who aren't going to stand behind their work when things go wrong, and won't give you the best experience. So especially here in Arizona, because it's kind of like the Wild West, right? We have no regulation on a lot of things out here. That's especially true in the moving business. You want to definitely check the company you're working for and make sure that you're, getting a fair quote, but don't be afraid to spend a few extra dollars on a quality company.
It's been a few years since I moved here to Arizona, so I'm ready for a little sticker shock. Tell me what a cross-town local move for a typical 3-bed, 2-bath home costs. What should people actually be prepared to spend?
So it depends if we're doing a full service move where we come in and pack everything up and you're kind of like hands off. You don't want to touch anything. We can pack it, move it, unpack it. That's a more comprehensive service. It's going to cost more. Some people just want us to come in and get the big stuff, right? You don't want to have to deal with moving, armoires down the stairs and pianos and things like that. So depending on what you have going on, I can tell you that our typical move for a 3 to 4 bedroom home, where we are just providing the full service moving, not the packing, is usually around $2,000, between $1,500 and $2,500 all said and done. So
let's say we find that organization and we find a good moving company that is recommended on it, and we call. I'm sure you want to get a couple of different estimates. Always a good idea to get the estimates in person. The mover should come out to the house, or can they do it virtually?
So nice thing is with technology nowadays, there's a lot of services that we can do virtual estimates, virtual surveys, and those work really well. I still don't think anything compares to having somebody come out and do an in-person estimate for you, especially when you're talking about a full house, right? That you've probably been in for 5, 10, 15 years. You've got cabinets full, you've got garage, attic, backyard, all kinds of things that are tough to cover on a virtual survey. I can tell you with our company, anything that's over 1,500 square feet, we get eyeballs on, typically in person. And then anytime a customer requests a walkthrough, regardless of the size of the move, we're happy to accommodate that. And any moving company should be willing to come out and take a look at what you have going on.
Are there certain things that you would want a customer to point out to you? Like I have a piano. That's pretty obvious. If a mover's walking through my living room, they're going to notice the piano. But are there certain things that I need to flag to make sure that the estimate is complete?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of times it's all about setting the proper expectations on both sides, right? There are sometimes, where we've seen issues come into play is where maybe we don't get the full picture of what's going on up front, especially when there's no in-person walkthrough done and it's just a phone conversation. It's very important to be very upfront with everything you have. I would rather you tell us what you have. We can give you a proper estimate, as opposed to what looks like a bait and switch where you say, oh, it's no big deal. This will be the easiest move you ever had. I've only got a few things. We don't realize, like, as humans, I think we are collectors of items, right? So we typically have more than we think we do. And when it's time to move, it's It's time to go through everything. There's a lot to take into consideration. So just being really upfront, any specialty items that you have, grandfather clocks, pool tables, pianos, those pretty much show themselves when we're doing the estimate. But it's really the stuff that you don't think about, the attics, the storage units that you might have, the sheds, things like that need to be addressed as well.
Okay, so we get 3 companies, and we have the 3 companies come out, and we get 3 estimates, and we finally choose a company. Now what do we do? As a homeowner or maybe a tenant, do we put down money, or is that a red flag to, run away? What comes with the finances?
Yeah, as far as the financing goes for the move, the estimate should be laid out for you very clearly, right? Should be in writing. Every legitimate company has some sort of CRM that they use where they can give you an actual estimate in writing. So I'd make sure that you get that. Make sure that it outlines the scope of the work that they're going to provide for you so that you know how to prepare, because the last thing you want to do is be on a different page than your mover, where they give you an estimate for a couple $1,000s based on you maybe getting rid of things or packing up things or doing things that you plan to do ahead of time. And if those don't get done, that can affect how much the service will cost the day of. So that's one thing. A deposit, I don't feel, is a deterrent. I can tell you that for our local moves, we charge a $100 deposit whenever we reserve a time slot for somebody. That's a fully refundable deposit. The goal is to just make sure that you want to, our resources are also limited. So we want to make sure that if you're booking time with us, that you're serious about moving and you plan to move. Now, we know things happen, so you can reschedule that move anytime. No company should keep your deposit because you had to reschedule your move. The deposit is more to hold the time and make sure that you're, actually moving. And there are some people who have, maybe been burned before, and so they hire 2 or 3 movers just to make sure that one of them shows up, right? Because it's common that sometimes movers will book a time slot and not show up. So that's a deposit shouldn't scare you away. I just make sure that it's refundable and that you're comfortable with the company that you're working with.
I totally get that, because you guys have a job to do. So if somebody schedules something for Monday at 8 a.m., you have to keep that slot open, and you do want the deposit. But nothing like, let's say it's a $2,000 move. If a company asks for $1,000 up front, that would be a bad sign.
Big red flag. Yeah. This is up for debate, and there are some people that say deposits are bad, some people that say they're great. You should never, in my opinion, never pay more than probably 25%, prior to your move.
What are some of the other red flags? You, at the top of this podcast, you described some really nightmare scenarios. How might I be tipped off that my stuff is going to get stuck, or they're going to try to hold it for ransom later? How do I know?
So the biggest source of what we call rogue movers or scam operators is typically brokers, right? Somebody who, and where you're going to, Florida, unfortunately, is kind of the hotbed for moving brokers. It's something that we fight against tremendously as legitimate, asset-based movers. So your communications with them should be your number one indicator. When you call them up and they answer moving company, or they're kind of vague in how they're talking to you about the services, they're not answering specific questions, they're not willing to show you their insurance certificate, they're not, willing to provide references. We can go as deep as you'd like us to with checking our credentials, but a lot of the brokers out there are just kind of vague. They give you a quick price, they give you a low price, they make a lot of promises. And you just have to be very wary of that. That's why I definitely recommend a couple of estimates, 2 to 3, so that way if you've got one, you may not know what a broker is or what a low price would be. But if you get 2 or 3 estimates, you're going to get a pretty good idea of kind of a low, middle, and high end quote, typically speaking.
Yeah, I've heard of that nightmare where people hire what they think is the moving company, and they're actually talking to the broker, who just wants, I guess, a speedy and quick and guaranteed commission before he pawns it off to a moving company. And after that, he washes his hands of it, and now you have to deal with any bad service that you're getting from the moving company.
Yep, definitely. We see that time and time again, and that's how they do it. So they get you on the phone, they take your deposit, and then they farm your move out to some other company who may or may not be quality. Typically, they're not quality movers. And that's where they're going to try and collect more money from you because they're getting partial information from the broker. And it's just kind of a mess. But one other tip I'd recommend is checking the website of the moving company, checking their social media, making sure they're real people. You can go onto our website and see pictures of me, pictures of us. If you go to a website for a moving company that you're looking for and it's a lot of stock photos and just very generic wording and things like that, that's another red flag where it's something that they've thrown together real quick just to kind of get you on the hook. So
what should be, let's go back to that example, moving from Buckeye to Mesa, and you have the contract in front of you. What needs to be in there?
Well, it depends on what, from the quote, that's a little bit less regulated. The bill of lading, the contract the day of the move, should have information about how you're paying for the move, right? Whether it's going to be hourly, a flat rate, a binding estimate, so on and so forth. Information about the supplies and what the estimated supplies are going to be for the move. Should have information about coverage, right? A lot of people call it insurance. We don't sell insurance as movers. We're not insurance salesmen, but coverage for your goods. So that should be a discussion you have up front with your mover every time. What happens if things don't go right? What happens if something gets broken or your truck catches on fire or whatever the case is? You have coverage for that, and whether you know your limits and know what's expected as far as that goes. And on top of that, it really should just be terms and conditions. It shouldn't be a 10-page contract. Our estimate is 1 page. Our bill of lading is 2 pages. We lay out things that are typical pitfalls for clients in bold print, not a lot of fine print. So you can we want to set proper expectations with you up front. So just making sure it's not a lot of jargon that you have to have your lawyer review to make sure you're not getting ripped off.
So there are basically 2 important documents: the estimate, which is going to basically say how much they're moving and how much it's going to cost. But then you mentioned the bill of lading. That comes the day of the move.
Day of the move, right? That's going to have your rate for the move, your start time, your end time, all your information about where we're starting the move and finishing the move, so on and so forth. Information for the coverage, supplies, and all that stuff. And then at the end, when you finish the job, you're basically going to sign off and say, I agree to the terms of this move. I agree to the payment. Everything is in satisfactory condition. So before you sign that at the end, make sure that you're comfortable. That's one thing that I see a lot of too, is that people will kind of just sign here, and they don't actually talk about what's going on. You don't have a chance to review it, and then you're signing saying that everything's great when really it's not great. So.
When I moved here from Rhode Island, I was absolutely terrified about putting all of my belongings into a truck and just saying, see ya in however many days. I don't know. So we had actually had a local mover move us from a condo in Providence to our house that we lived in Rhode Island, and they were lovely. And so 2 years later, I called him and I said, hey, we're moving to Arizona. I know you do not go across the country.
Can you recommend somebody?
But no, I said, I love you guys so much. Would you be willing to do this move for me? And they said, sure, we're happy to.
What?
They rented a truck because they didn't want to take one of their local trucks out of commission. And the guy who owned the company figured it all out. He drove that truck out here to Arizona for us. He hired people here in Arizona to help him unload that day. Our stuff was the only stuff on the truck. And he didn't charge us out the nose. I mean, I know it sounds like we spent boatloads of money. He did not. He just charged us a reasonable rate for what the move was, and it was the most peace of mind I could possibly have.
Wow. It's like hiring a family member.
It really was. I mean, he gave us all kinds of little T-shirts for our son at the time.
Oh, very cool.
And then we recommended him to everybody we knew still in Rhode Island, and I think he did 4 or 5 or 6 more moves for our friends and coworkers. But it does take a lot of trust to have somebody with all of your stuff. And the thing that I loved about him, and I don't know if it's common in the moving industry because I've only moved a handful of times, was every single box had, a number on it. So when we were complete, the move was done. We went through and we made sure every single box, here's box 1, check. Here's box 2, check.
Yes.
And we walked around together and made sure everything was all in order. And but it's daunting.
Yeah. That makes me remember my move from Grand Rapids, Michigan down here. It was on a big semi, and our stuff was on there with other people's stuff, and people don't realize that. I mean, that big truck, it's not just you. It's
they load your stuff, and they go to the next house and load somebody else's.
And the moving company was based out of Tucson, and he forgot to give me his my vacuum cleaner. He drove all the way from Tucson to deliver the vacuum cleaner.
So nice.
I mean, it costs more in gas and time for this poor company than the vacuum cleaner.
But they made it right.
They did. Hey, at the end of the move, if you had a great experience and nothing's broken and everything was good, gratuities, tipping. I know tipping is kind of like out of hand right now. I mean, everybody expects a tip.
But I think movers deserve a tip.
I think they do too. Is that accurate, and how much?
So I'm gonna say that we pay our, I started as a mover myself. I was on our trucks every day for the first couple of years that we were in business, and still go out there from time to time. It absolutely is nice when you work hard for somebody, especially, we take pride in coming in under the estimate we give you. We want to try to get the move done and over with and save you some money, compared to what you were planning on spending. If you've got it in your budget and you're able to tip the guys, or the movers, I shouldn't say guys, there's some wonderful lady movers out there as well, but that's always appreciated. Now, the moving company pays their movers well enough to not expect a tip. It's not like we're servers that are getting paid a lower hourly wage and depend on the tips. But I will tell you, it's a really nice gesture. It's very common. A lot of people, I would say, our movers do very, very well with tips, and they range from $5 or $10 to some people have been tipped thousands of dollars, especially on interstate moves, that just, it's insane. But I would say the average tip, if you've got a local move, it's a 6 to 8 hour day, let's say, and everything's gone pretty well and you're happy with the services. If you tip and you got 3 movers, you tip each mover, $50 to maybe $100 a guy, they're going to be through the moon for that. So not expected. Yep. We should not look at you dirty if you don't tip us. We should not ask for a tip. But if you have it in the budget and you can tip the guys and show your appreciation, sure, they're going to be very, very appreciative.
That's fantastic perspective.
I heard it was like 10%. I mean, is there any kind of a golden rule there? 10 to 20%?
10%. I mean, if you figure out, let's say the move was $2,000 and you tip, the total tip was $200, right? That's 10%, split 3 ways. That's about $65, $70 per person. I mean, that's a really, really solid, good tip for the day. You figure that, I would say locally here, most local movers are making somewhere between, lower end $17 an hour at some companies. I can tell you that we're typically paying $20 to $30 an hour per mover that works for us. So it's a decent paying job, but nothing you're going to get rich doing. And so a tip of $60 makes a big difference in the income for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thank you very much for being on the On Your Side podcast, Justin. If people want to find out more about you or Just in Time Moving and Storage, website, any social media that you want to get out there?
Absolutely. JITmoving.com. And then most of our handles are at JITmoving. Phone number 480-213-0395. Happy to help anytime.
And real quickly, earlier in the conversation, you said you could find good, reputable, legitimate movers on a particular organization's website. What was that again?
Moversaz.org.
Okay, mover. Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your go-to source.
Helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. Justin, thank you very much. Keep your back in line. I don't want you throwing your back out moving all those heavy pianos, okay?
Well, sitting in this office chair all day now, it doesn't get too dinged up at this point. So I get a lot of crap from the movers that work here.
I would imagine. Well, you're the boss man, right? Yeah. So there you go. Justin, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. So I'm excited now after that conversation.
Ready to go.
I'm ready to go. It still doesn't change the way the inside of my house looks because there are a lot of boxes. Some are taped shut. Some are still open. Things around the dining room table. Oh.
Are you getting rid of things as you're packing? Or are you just packing it all and going to figure it out later?
We are getting rid of a lot of stuff. I mean, we're not taking our couch and our sofa, which, by the way, they are really, really nice. They're the power ones where your feet goes up, right? But we're getting rid of so many things that we just want to start with new stuff where we're going. And plus,
it's expensive to move.
It's expensive to move. Yeah, exactly. So what was your biggest take from that today?
I think it's just the trust factor, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think your gut is going to tell you a lot about the movers and the people who are in your house. And I know that's not a scientific way to hire somebody, but I think it does go a long way in a case like this. Mm-hmm. And Gary, this is the last podcast. You're signing off with me now.
Yes, I am. But you know what? You'll always be in my thoughts and my heart, Susan.
And you're going to subscribe to this podcast and listen no matter who is next co-host or guest co-host.
I want to see if this content continues, and I'm sure it will.
Deal.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can't, send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock. And every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.